up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 879. Gary and Richard here, and I'm back, and we've got lots to talk about. We've got new builds of Windows 11. Richard's got his dev box, his ARM-powered dev box. We're talking about that. I've got some interesting Korg software to talk about. We've got EV and smart home updates, and lots more. So let's get straight to Richard and Gary. Gary, Richard, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, and it's good to be back, and I really enjoyed the show last week. It was good to be a listener for a change, and
yes,
enjoyed
I must have
the chat.
for my outrageous jet lag there, because I have no memory of doing that show at all.
To be honest, I didn't notice when we were recording, but
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's terrible.
it was great. It was great. It really learned so much, so that was good.
Yeah. So I'm glad that everyone's back in place. So we've got quite a lot of things to catch up on. I know you've got your dev box, Richard, that I wanted to chat to you.
I'm
got
speaking
some
to you from that right now. Actually, I've been using it last week.
So I've got some new bits of software I've been playing with, and we did have a new build yesterday, which was a bit strange. Monday evening, as we record this week,
And it's good, and it's got some good things in it too.
Has it?
It has the VPN logo. Very useful.
Oh right, all right. Okay.
I'm not being sarcastic. That's actually generally quite
I
useful.
thought that was a Richard sarcastic.
No. That's actually quite a useful thing. It's I can see some benefits around knowing if you're on a VPN, because it's frustrating when you have to rely on some third-party weird widget to tell you if you're connected or not. It's like actually having it on the network connection system is really good. But we'll get on to that.
Yes, well, okay, we can start on that. So we're on that. So so we did get a new build, and it's got a VPN widget.
It's exactly. This is I mean, it's in the dev channel, isn't it? It's build 25252, which is a good number. And because they also took a break for the US Thanksgiving holiday tour, so they brought this thing out, and it has actually got a very, after I would say a long time between anything happening, I was quite pleased to see the VPN symbol. It's like a little blue shield. You know, when you're connected, your active network connection in the taskbar in the bottom right-hand corner. That now puts a little blue shield if it's a recognized VPN profile, and that's actually quite handy to know when you're connected. Particularly, the whining sound you may have heard before was us talking about our grief changing at airports. Not the fan on my dev box, but when you are traveling, it's actually really useful to know when you're on a VPN, when you're not on a VPN. I can see all kinds of benefits to having that. I think it's actually one of those little tweaks they've done to Windows, which I think is going to be really quite useful, along with when they move the right click on the taskbar to bring back the task manager, and when that makes its way down to production. But that aside, I think this is actually a really useful feature. So basically, you get this little shield. It's blue on my system, but I think is it the system accent color? I think.
Yes, I think it is. Yeah.
So if you're using, it listens, it pays attention to your theming, but it just helps you know when you're on a VPN. So I'd say that's a really good feature. I mean, other stuff in it, like searching the taskbar and various fixing things, they're all okay. And there are some issues around this build. Obviously, widgets might go away, which some may think is a good thing for some insiders. There's issues which can also break secondary drivers for some insiders. But on the whole, this is, I think, quite a useful thing. That would be my highlight of the dev channel build, and I'm looking forward to that making its way down through the builds.
Yeah, I think you're right. I've been interested to see how it handles. I guess it understands the concept of the third-party VPNs as well, doesn't it? So it's not just the one that's built into Windows. Yeah,
I mean, it's if it's a recognized VPN profile, but it's an improvement over having to have some sort of weird third-party widget there, which I've never been that keen on, really. I'd like Windows to tell me when my network connection is going through something different. That's really what I'd like. So I'm pleased to see it there.
And then that's the things that they're experimenting with the search box, which again I didn't get as usual, because they did a lot of playing around with this search box. I had it as a blue thing down here the other week. It's now gone to a translucent box, and they're trying it, but it looks like a Windows 10 style one that they're testing out.
Yeah, it's ugly.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Probably getting chucked off the MVP program, but it's definitely ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gone bases square, isn't it? It's weird.
Yeah, it just looks like they've just lifted it from Windows 10, but I'm not that keen on that one. But anyway, I didn't get it, so I presume they're doing this for some, for UI testing purposes, and
Yeah, I
yeah.
guess so. It is quite clunky though. Although to be honest, I've never been keen on having search down there anyway. Anyway, I mean, I was happy with it in Windows 10, the way Windows 10 worked, but I've got quite used to Windows 11. Although to be honest, anything I use search for is to find apps, which I'd use PowerToys Run for that anyway. So
yeah, true. I always forget to use PowerToys Run, but yeah, I've got it installed and I always forget about it. But
it's ace. I'd recommend it, and also just Clint will come and get you if you don't use it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's a very good. It's very handy. Yeah, so that was it really. There was and he said there was those known issues and a few fixes, but not a huge amount. But I suppose it was the first day back at work yesterday, so maybe they're gently feeding those in.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they don't. I mean, the search box is ugly, and that there is the whole creeping adverts in the Windows as well, which I don't like. But there we go, one of those things.
Yeah, and we also got a beta build as well, didn't we? Yesterday, 22621 or 22623.
Yeah, I mean that's got some fixes in it. It hasn't got much in the way of new features, I think, apart from Braille stuff. Is
that's right. Yeah, that was it. Yeah,
so
Braille
obviously,
support.
if you have accessibility issues, there's more support for Braille displays in the narrator app. Aside from that, I mean, there are a lot of useful fixes in there. I mean, I think the storage, the full amount of storage capacity being shown from OneDrive is quite useful if you're a OneDrive user. I'd say that's quite useful. There's a number of other fixes around certain apps that stop responding, which I wish they'd be more specific about what apps these are and what the issue was. It's like, the phrase is, we fixed an issue that might have caused certain apps to stop responding. This occurred when you opened the open file dialog. Well, what was it? What was the issue? What apps were affected? It would be nice to know. I mean, obviously, you can trawl through the inside side of people and try and work it out, but it would be nice if they were a little bit more clear about what happened there. But yes, so there's a few fixes that are worth having. And again, I think nothing to frighten the horses. I'm looking forward to it when it comes down to the production channel.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be that long before these make their way through. So an interesting set of updates, but nothing too excited, and of course nothing the week before either because it was Thanksgiving. So
do you think it's a sign that it's got so dull that I'm actually very excited about the VPN thing more than I should be?
Well, yeah, I did think you were being sarcastic. So yeah. So probably.
I'd say something in the recent production release has actually fixed my camera issues I was having in Teams, so that's good.
Oh, good. Was
So,
that used? Was that used?
Not mentioned anyway, but
Slack instead. Just curious. Or Google Meet. just don't use Teams. That's the fix.
Yeah.
Next.
I use Teams all day, never have any problems. But because as you say every time, because I have one tenant and it works.
Yeah.
I have no problems as long as I'm not using the HP camera. That it was only when I used to use the HP camera it used to freeze. So any external camera was fine, but it was just the internal HP camera.
It's very interesting. Yeah. I'm guessing there must be some sort of driver hardware thing then, I guess.
Yeah, one guess so. But anyway, something has fixed it recently, and there hasn't been any, as far as I can see, there's been no driver updates for a good year now on that camera. So it must have been something in either Teams or Windows.
I must admit, I found this Windows and ARM box I'm currently using depressingly stable. Nothing has gone wrong yet. It's quite boring, really.
Right, so just refresh for listeners. So you got this came out a couple of weeks ago while you were globetrotting. What is it, and how are you getting on with it?
Well, this is what was called Project Volterra. It's now called the Windows Dev Kit 2023. I don't know, Gary, have you got one yet?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
I can't justify one yet because I'm really on projects, but I can justify one for home use, but not for the business.
Exactly. Well, basically, it's quite a powerful bit of kit. It costs, I think, in the UK, it's about £579, including VAT in the UK, which I think has gone up slightly recently. I don't think it was that much when I bought it, but I don't know. But it's quite a powerful bit of kit. It's got 32 gigs of RAM. It's got a Snapdragon 8CX Gen 3 inside it. It's got a 512 gig SSD NVMe, so it's pretty quick. And of course, being a Snapdragon, it's ARM based, so it comes with Windows and ARM. I think it's Windows on ARM Pro, and It's, as I said, depressingly stable. I've actually haven't got a bad thing to say about it, apart from the fact, obviously, you have to really be in the Microsoft ecosystem to use it properly. It will run x64 apps, Intel and AMD apps and emulation, but I have to say it's not a great experience. It's still, I mean, they work, but they're not particularly good. And I do have my old x64 PC as well, which I can run things up. But I have to say, most of the things that I do day to day, which is productivity using Office, Visual Studio Code, bit of Visual Studio, which is still, I think the ARM support is still in preview. Gary, is that correct? I think it's still preview for ARM support.
I believe so. It's still so.
Yeah. So that's I mean, I think I'm using preview 2 or 3 for that for the ARM support, but it just works. I mean, the only whinge I've got is that when I turned it on, it defaulted to dark mode the first time I used it, which I'm guessing because it's aimed at developers, they decided to have the whole thing default to dark mode, which annoyed the heck out of me because I hate dark mode with a passion. But I know a lot of people really like it. So exactly, it was something that wasn't hard to change really. So just change it to the theme to light mode, and I have to say I'm generally very impressed with them. I've got a Mac Mini as well, an M1 Mac Mini. I'd say it runs Windows on ARM probably about as fast as the M1 Mac Mini. That's subjective. I mean, there are benchmarks which will show one thing or another, but I'd say I've got no need now to go back to my M1 Mac Mini to run Windows on ARM apps. Size-wise, it's slightly smaller than a Mac Mini, but it does have a hulking great external PSU that's about a third of the size of the box, which is a shame. I wish they'd put the power supply in it instead of having an external brick, but there we go, one of those things. You've got Wi-Fi, you've got 2 USB-Cs, 3 USB-As, a mini display port, Ethernet port, and as I said, I turned it on and it simply all worked. It then went out to my OneDrive, pulled down the profile from my other Windows PC, installed all the apps, installed ARM-based apps as when it could, and on the whole, yeah, I mean, I think I said even at the time, I kind of almost wish this had been sold as a consumer product because it does work really well. I think as soon as you deviate from the Microsoft world and want to run things under x64 emulation, then things don't go quite sort of. I mean, I tried out some fairly extreme things just to see what it would do. I tried some other products. And they worked I mean, they worked, but you were aware of the fact it wasn't seamless. I mean, it didn't feel that slick. And I tried a few Game Pass games. I tried Sea of Thieves because I like playing Sea of Thieves, and that astonishingly worked. I was quite surprised to see it even start up, but it did start up and it ran. Those who like their 100 FPS games would probably wince to know it ran at about 15 frames per second, so I wouldn't call it entirely playable. But I was quite surprised to see it did manage to work. Yeah, at the moment, I have to say, cut me impressed. I'd like to see this tech turn up in a future small Surface device. Surface Go, good.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I want. Yeah.
I mean, I can't see why. I mean, the reason I got this is because I was in the market for a new Windows 11 PC because my old PC is about 6 years old, and so in the grand scheme of Microsoft, nothing on that PC is compatible now with Windows 11, even though it flies and runs really fast. The CPU is too old; it's got no TPM, so it's even with all the registry hacks, it's not happy running Windows 11 at all. So I thought I should get something that's approved and standard, and this was relatively inexpensive. And for a 32 gig machine with half a terabyte of SSD, that's not a bad price, to be honest.
No, it's definitely not. No.
But as a developer, obviously, it's only really good for churning out ARM stuff or churning out stuff aimed at the cloud, because you're not going to use this to produce Intel apps because it's an ARM-based machine. I mean, it could do, but you wouldn't want to. You'd want to use your. So that I'd say would be one thing that I would say. Well, I'm not that impressed with it as running things in the Intel world, but then again, it's an ARM dev kit for doing ARM stuff. So yeah, I'm sorry that I can't be more negative here. I'm trying to be, but I actually quite like it.
That's nice. It's nice to hear positive, Richard.
Yeah, it's also
2 weeks running, actually, isn't it?
Exactly. It's also very quiet. It's fanless.
It's you in America.
I've not seen inside it. I think it's fanless, but it's incredibly quiet. It's got a power button. It's just a I mean, if you're in the market for a new Windows PC and you think that, well, ARM might be interesting. I have to say I have had no problems at all in over a week now using ARM-based Office. Works well. It's ARM-based. I think it's the Windows Universal executor, isn't it? So it's x64 and ARM. I think it's the same binary. I think that's how it works, something like that. But it just all works. Oh, and that they've even compiled Solitaire to native ARM as well. So that's good. But yeah, so there we have it. It gets my seal of approval if you're into the ARM-based thing and you do not want to play games.
Yeah, good. I'm wondering if it make a good home automation server, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it probably would do actually. Again,
because you run the Android subsystem.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't mention that the Android that works really well on this. Yeah, obviously, works extremely well. Yeah,
most of the home automation stuff is on Android.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and also I should put on it the Windows subsystem also works a treat as well. All that stuff works really well. Subsystem Android, I should have mentioned that. Very impressive. I mean, all the clunkiness and jerkiness you might have got on Intel-based machines gone. Just very. I mean, it's a really good bit of kit for that actually. So I do wonder if I'm surprised they've not launched it as more of a consumer or just more of a general based thing. Perhaps this is one of their things they're saying, here you go, industry, here's how you should build one of these devices, because it seems to work really well.
And I suppose they don't want to get caught out like they did last time with ARM and having a bad experience. And so this is specifically tailored so that it sets expectations. I
guess so, yes, exactly. Because, I mean, the last thing you want is people, I mean, we can't compare it too much to the days of the Surface RT because, of course, it does have the Intel emulation. And as I say, I mean, I plugged in my webcam and my keyboard and mouse on my Intel PC, and they all worked. Printer works, everything works. All the stuff that I'd associated, Windows and ARM not playing well with, which included anything involving mouse or printer drivers, just didn't seem to work years ago. Just worked out the box. Everything just worked out the box. So I'm thinking with Windows 11 on ARM that they've cracked lots of things. So. But yeah, I mean, the Surface RT example, that was obviously a really good ARM-based device, but there was no way of getting to Intel. So if you tried to run any Intel apps, that they just wouldn't work. Whereas now they will work. But again, I think you're absolutely correct. Expectation management here is key. It's like you do not want to try doing consumer games using certain sorts of consumer apps. If any Intel-based app on this, it's not going to be as nice an experience as if you're running the Intel app natively. I mean, they've done a great job. Don't get me wrong, but if there's an Intel app that's not native, then it's just not as slick as on a native Intel machine. But a lot of these things are being ported over to ARM anyway. I mean, as I said, Office is there. I think are some of the Adobe things there now. I can't remember if they've done some. But certainly more things are now making their way. Even Microsoft, who dragged their feet famously on certain products, they're now all available. So Visual Studio in preview mode is there. You've got Visual Studio Code, obviously, is there. Edge works a treat. I mean, I use Edge for everything. So yeah, but you have to. My proviso on all this is it works really well if you're in the Microsoft world. Not so well if you're not.
Yeah, and if you were trying something, say like a video editing software that I would use or audio editing, that you're going to hit issues, then, aren't you?
I would check first of all if there's a Windows and ARM native version first, and if there isn't, I'd give it serious thought before making the leap.
Yeah, but
because the thing is, I mean, with 32 gigs of RAM and half a terabyte storage, it would be great for that sort of thing. But
yeah, well, it would make a great machine from my desk here for doing all the music stuff, but because all that is Intel based and ARM, Intel driver, and I know that is right at the end of the process of the Windows on ARM. Really, that's not going to come for some time. But
I can't see your Korg driver happening anytime soon.
Yeah, but for a Surface Go, taking notes in meetings, using a pen, running Office, and doing some Edge browsing in the evening, then it sounds perfect.
Exactly, and it would be. I mean, this chipset would be amazing in a Surface Go type device. It would be really good. I think, ideally suited for that because you can see it running OneNote quite happily. You can see it doing the productivity apps extremely happily. Yeah, definitely.
And like you mentioned, Android apps as well. So that form factor works well. So yeah, I would definitely if they I really want to get a Surface Go to replace my one that's dying, but I won't buy an Intel one at the moment because I just feel like the ARM one is what it needs to be. So I'm holding out.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, it's good that it's there. And I think you mentioned you're going to do a full review for us as well, so we can.
Yes, yeah, I'll talk about it because obviously,
yeah.
I did a first glance a few weeks back, but yes, I'll give you a full run of my experiences, which again, thus far have been depressingly positive.
Well, that's good. You mentioned about the Korg things. I've been trying something new this week, last week as well. So, having physically filled my space in this room with keyboards and synthesizers, and one there, and I've got some over there, I can't buy any more because there's just no space for them. So, soft synths is an obvious solution because they're software. I have a few of those in the past, but I know we don't have music channel and such, but so I only want to quickly go over this. But I did get from Korg last week is an update to their. I don't know if I can share. Trying to share. Yeah, there we go. In fact, I'll share my whole desktop because you can. It's multi-window one. But yeah, what I did pick up was the Korg software. It's called Korg Collection 4 now, which they launched last week. They're on version 4, and this gives you, I think it's $199 for the whole set, or you can buy them individually. But if you buy them individually, some are $50, some are $100. So depending on, what you want, it can be quite expensive. But this is the one you get. So get virtual versions of all these software, apart from these two, the WaveState and the OpSix and new devices. They're purchased separately. So what you get is a Triton, which is the flagship synth from 2000 to 2015 of Korg. Michael Korg, best-selling synthesizer of all time, apparently. 20 years old this year. The Chaos Pad, which is like a DJ mixing thing, like the Electribe, which is a Groovebox, I think they call them in these days, a drum machine to you and I. Michael Korg, which is a very old school 1973 synthesizer. The M1, which is the classic dance one. If you think of any 90s piano sounds on 90s house music, that piano sound or organs or bass, they come from the M1. Wavestation, great machine. Odyssey, another 70s machine. MS-20, another 70s machine, and two early 80s machine, plus an FX. So you're getting a lot of synths for your book there. They're all ARM. They're all Intel ones, so you're not going to get these work at ARM, but they work really well. So I just had a quick play with them. I'm not going to play the sounds on now, but I've really just started messing about with them. But they are really good, and it's impressive how good these emulations are now. What I was interested to see was, and here's the Odyssey. What I was interested to see is how much CPU they're taking, and if I just flick up Task Manager on there. You can see I'm running this one now. Oh, it's got a lot of sound coming through. Turn that off. There we go. I don't know if that's come through, but that was really loud on my headphones. But these emulations in the past used to take loads of CPU, which always put you off. If you've got a few of them going, but you can see this is taking hardly anything. So they use an interesting technique as well. This is not a new technique, and this one has been around a few years, but they use component modeling technology. So they don't emulate. So theoretically, they don't emulate the end result. They emulate the circuit boards, so the resistors, the capacitors, the whatever chips that they used to get the end result. So you're getting a realistic emulation of the device based on its circuit components rather than just an approximation of it. But like I said, there's all these ones I've got. You can fire them up, and quite interesting. I mean, so if you were to buy a new Michael Korg, it costs you a few £100 now. If you can buy one of these ARP Odysseys now. The Korg make a real one, and that will cost you £600. So and you need the space for them. It's not a direct replacement because there's nothing like the actual feel of a hands-on synth, and having a synth in your hands is just something slightly different than this. But there are some nice things you can do on here. They've got something called MIDI Learn. So the CC, the control change. So I could go to one of my other synths and say the frequency, the VCF frequency, I can control it from the VCF control on my other synth. So you can kind of patch those hardware controls, so you can have a real synth acting as a control surface for one of these. Just started playing with them, but I thought they're quite nice. But these the newer ones are these this micro Korg, which is, as I said, 20 years old, and it's actually that one behind me. It's kind of the successor to that one, and it's now virtualized now. So it's kind of weird now when you've got your synths that I bought new are being classed as legacy virtualization. So, yeah, but good fun anyway. So I know Roland do some of these as well, but I thought that was quite interesting. One good thing about this, I've been to look at the Roland ones as well. The Roland ones have DRM on them and need to call home every now and again to reactivate themselves. So it's a bit like these home automation servers type things, isn't it? You're buying into their ecosystem, and if they decide to shut down their servers or whatever, then that software goes. So with Roland ones, you can do a monthly subscription or you can buy a lifetime key. But even if you buy a lifetime key, it's a lifetime key of them hosting their activation server. The Korg ones are different. You activate them as you install them, and then they're permanently activated. So you don't have to it doesn't have to call home and get a license key, because I think that's a bit of a risk, that, isn't it? We all know these these services work is that eventually they don't work forever, and the risk of the developers pulling the plug on them at some point and just saying, oh, we're not keeping the activation server going anymore, and that's your whatever you pay, 300 quid, 200 quid, whatever, is gone. And I'm not saying Roland are going to do that, but you are at that risk. Whereas the ones that are the one-time activation, then at least that's not that an issue. But anyway, good fun, and there's a free trial available. So if you wanted to have a play, you can try all them synths, and you get 20 minutes to play before you have to restart it effectively if you're in demo mode, but it's fully functioning. So what if you've got a MIDI keyboard, or you want to give them a try, it's a good way of getting into synths and taking you back a bit to those retro sounds. But it's not the same as buying a real one, but I'm gonna have to move some stuff around, I think, to justify the getting it, or sneak one in through the window or something like that, so it doesn't cut, so I don't have to walk past the wife bringing it in. Because you can never have enough keyboards. It's like Lego, I'm sure.
This is true. I'm actually looking around, and I've just realised I've got 3 Apollo service modules sitting around at the moment, which probably is too much. 2 lunar landers, 2 space shuttles, 2 Saturn
That sounds a lot.
1 converted to Skylab, and also a full sort of a larger Skylab. Yeah, too much Lego. You're right. That's definitely too. And the Atari and the Nintendo NES Lego. Yeah, just too much Lego. Yeah, it is possible to have too much Lego.
Yeah, and you have to say if you get another delivery of another box of Lego, you go, but this is different. And
I now have to sneak it in the house.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yes, but with a big synthesizer thing, it's not easy.
Oh, it's easy. All you say is it's a birthday present for you, dear. It's what you say. It's easy. And then at some point buy a big bunch of flowers. Say, yeah, they were in the box. There we go.
Yes.
Hey.
So combining your question in, has anybody done synthesizers for VR yet? That sounds like it'd be a really good thing to do.
Yes, when I looked around it,
we have your feedback.
Yeah, there was. You need that feedback. I think that's what I did. Try a couple of things, and a bit like what was the beat thing for the what's it called? That one where you play the tunes and you go along with it. Richard, you must have that one.
No.
Oh, what was it called? Beat I'll find it. But it's the one where you
Beat Saber.
Beat Saber. That's the one. Yeah.
Beat Saber, yes.
When you've got big broad movements, you can do something. So I could imagine something like like the Jean-Michel Jarre laser harp.
Yeah.
Yes. Where that could work because it's a large control surface. Anything small like a synthesizer key is with the current technology, I guess, is too small. I know Microsoft were demoing the HoloLens, weren't they, with the little tiny bird sitting on the fingers, but I don't think they've quite got that stuff. Plus, I think you'd need the tactile feedback. So if you had some haptic gloves or something like that, then
yeah.
Especially
wasn't that one of the HoloLens 2 demonstrations, a keyboard?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I never got to try it, but yes, it was. So, like I said, So for the big things like the laser harp, I could see that working. For the small things, I think that if you've got some tactile feedback, and then you can, that would be great, because that's one of the things that, like you say, emulating a synthesizer on the screen is not the same as physically playing it. So if you emulated it and felt like you were controlling it, and especially if you've got some of those big modular, there's a big thing called Eurorack where everybody has these modules and connects them up, and they patch them all in with patch cables. It looks like a giant phone exchange, old school phone exchange. Then you could do that in VR. So there is I hope as a consumer side, that is something that you might be able to get in the future, and especially as interactive concerts and stuff like that might be quite interesting.
Yeah.
I think that there, Gary, just build me a laser harp, Jean-Michel Jarre laser harp in Windows Mixed Reality. Yeah. Although I suppose it would have to be in Steam now, wouldn't it? Actually, I did ask my son who bought the Oculus how often he plays it. He says, I don't really play it that much often. I haven't got enough space. So and I must admit I haven't used mine for quite some time. So I don't know, Richard, you used to getting good use out of yours?
Not so much. I mean, in actual fact, the same as your son. It's you do need space to wave around the old things. And I have to say that some of the games are starting to look a bit clunky now. I was disappointed that there wasn't a refresh, because things that looked great maybe 2-3 years ago are now starting to look a little bit clunky, if I'm honest. Which is, I mean, it is after all an old mobile phone attached to a screen. So it's definitely shown its age, which shame really. And the other thing is that the wireless mode with the Oculus software never seemed to work very well. And are they still developing that, or has that disappeared now? It's just I kind of think with the metaverse perhaps not being quite as popular or gangbusters as Facebook may have wanted, maybe the focus has moved a bit away from the Oculus now. I don't know, or the Meta as it's called.
Yes, that's right, because they did get rid of a lot of staff, didn't they, including this is Meta now. Facebook was Facebook. They got rid of a lot of stuff. I don't know how much of that was the VR development was affected by that, but it was quite a big chunk of staff, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So unfortunately, it's kind of, I've not used it for actually a good few months. I keep forgetting that I was away last month, so a good few months now, which is, I'm going to power it up tomorrow, and I'll let you know what happens.
Yeah. And of course, there's no way you can use it at all with anything to do with your dev box.
No. I don't think, well, yeah, you know what? I wonder if you could, because the Oculus software would run in obviously it would be emulation, so might work, but it would be an unpleasant experience. It would be a bit like you with all your various Windows installs, Ian. There's no reason to do it, but let's try it out.
Yeah, give it a try and give me feedback. Yeah, it's an interesting thing with VR, isn't it? It still feels like it's almost there, and it feels like it was peak 2016, 2017, and we've almost stepped back a bit from it now.
Yeah, I think so. It's a shame. And obviously they launched the Quest Pro recently, and again it's not a significant increase apart from the price, but it's not stupendously better, and obviously Microsoft appears to have stepped completely back now from HoloLens 2. I don't know if there's going to ever be a HoloLens 3.
I very much doubt it. It's kind of almost either by choice or by what's happened with the teams and everything. It's kind of, I think they're just going to concentrate with platform Azure backends and software platforms for VR. Yeah, right. I think they did some deals with Meta, didn't they, on some of the platform stuff?
Yes, yeah. But again, I think VR, unfortunately, while we were obviously very, very keen on it, it doesn't appear to have set the world alight. And let's face it, if it couldn't do it during the pandemic years, then I think maybe it's a few years behind. Yeah. I mean, I know of a few people who are working in industry, but they're focusing purely on kind of training and that kind of thing, as opposed to entertainment.
Yeah, there was a big VR thing that's opened up in Manchester in Trafford Park, actually. You know, those VR spaces.
Yeah, I often wonder how well those do, because I mean, there's one of those in Brighton as well, and I went to one in Nottingham pre-pandemic. I often wonder how they're going to do, because I don't know about you, I'd feel a bit squirmy about sticking a face plate on my face. I know they obviously they'll go through and they'll sanitize them in between, but I'd feel a little bit itchy about doing that. Irrationally speaking.
Yeah, I think so. And maybe if it was in, I don't know how they do it. Whether you get, you have to hide the whole venue, or you playing with other people or whatever. But again, it feels a little bit grown man wandering around with a headset and a virtual.
Yeah, although that said, I mean, I'd go. I've gone on two. I went on one in Nottingham, which was basically a large open space. You walked around it, and that was actually very effective. It was really good. Although looking back at it, the headset itself felt vaguely clammy and sweaty when I put it on. It's like, oh, someone's worn this before me. It feels really, oh, well, never mind. Maybe I'll be a bit more careful now. But before that, I went on one. I think it was in the Westfield Shopping Centre. They had a Star Wars one there, and that was incredible. That was really impressive, because they'd kind of matched the environment to what you saw on the screens. You'd reach out and you'd grab a rifle, and you'd actually in real life just be grabbing a plastic prop. But what you'd see through the divisor was actually you were holding the rifle in your hands. You then sort of do stormtroopery things and walk over lava and stuff, and it'd be all squidgy beneath your feet. And that was very, very effective. But again, those experiences do seem to, I don't know. I hope they're advancing, and that there'll be more along soon. But I've not seen. I mean, I wonder how much of a spanner, obviously what's happened in the last few years has thrown in the works as far as that's concerned.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, I think it's quite a fun couple of hours spent doing it, but I don't have feel like real urge to do it. But I would be interested to see how well it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I prefer Gary's idea of the virtual synthesizer. I've been much more interested.
Well, this could be your chance, Ian.
Yeah, you just need the technology for the glove side of it, and I think I'll have to wait for a little bit on that one.
Have to feed it back around. There's ways of making it work. It's expensive actually.
Yeah, actually, talking of that, I don't know if you've seen that series on Amazon called Peripheral.
Not yet, no. It's on my list, as are so many streaming series right now.
Yeah, actually, it's probably you probably quite enjoy it one. I think it's to describe it without giving too much away, but yeah, it's kind of VR-y. It's kind of near future and far off future. It's set, I suppose, and it involves headsets and VR, but not in quite as clean and a light and fun way as Ready Player One. It's darker and involves time travel and things like that, but essentially it is a headset that goes on and you get taken somewhere else. So it's quite an interesting use of the technology, or of how it can be used.
Definitely on my list as well. I mean, I like the source material for that. So it's a
William Gibson book, isn't it?
Yeah, and the trailer is really good. So
yeah.
Although obviously a bit off from the William Gibson source, but
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've got one of a William Gibson book over there somewhere. The Differential Engine, I think it's called, or Difference Engine. Yeah. It's that's a good book. That, but this is very different to that, because it's future stuff, but it's got the idea of the VR and really immersive headsets and the effects that can have on you, a bit of augmented human technology and that kind of thing. So it's definitely worth watching if you're interested in that.
I still think there's a future for AR, but not without any headsets. I think that's the only way it's going to become acceptable to consumers is if we actually have something. I mean, I've talked about eye protection and laser tracking before. If we have a look, you put on your table and it projects the images into your eyes, so you start seeing things around you, and everybody sees the same things because it's being projected in multiple places. That's the time it starts becoming acceptable to the consumers, but that's a few years off.
Like the Star Wars hologram.
Basically that. I mean, once you get, although I don't think it would be like the hologram, because it actually was designed to look like a hologram. Whereas what we'll get will be solid, interactive. Yeah, and I think that's potentially the future. I mean, I do know that there's a robot company which is looking at putting a sort of holographic shield or shell around its robots, so they don't look like humans, rather than so humanoid would actually not be done using sort of fake materials, but actually just some sort of hologram around a metal thing. But yeah, it's an interesting world. But you're right. I mean, it's just not taken off in the sim world, and I think it's primarily because of the clunkiness of the equipment. I think that just puts so many people off. Yeah.
Yeah, to find a few things. I don't, Gary, if you've got any home automation, I've just got one thing briefly mention. I've got some twinkly outside Christmas lights. I don't know that I mentioned them the other week, but so I've got the light panel there, and I've got the outside ones. So I've got a video of those up. They're actually pretty good. I quite like those. But yeah, go on.
Well, what I would say is it's a very good time to buy Zigbee modules at the moment, because they're all starting to think about moving to Matter. So they're starting to sell things which are really expensive. I picked up a really good 4-channel relay for Zigbee the other day, which was I think usually about 70 quid, and it's down to 30 quid, and that works incredibly well. 4 modes, and it has got a SmartThings Edge driver. I was talking about Edge drivers the other week on these are the new style SmartThings drivers, so it's going to continue to work with SmartThings. But that's got really good because it's got four relays with normally open and normally closed connectors on it, and you've got 3 modes of operation, so you can have latching, non-latching, and latching but unique latching. So it turns all the other. So if you turn one on, it turns the other 3 relays off, which is great for motor control. So it's really good, and it works really well. But the really nice thing about it is it's also got the ability to have 433 megahertz radio control on it, so you can just use a sort of like a little key fob things to control it as well. So you've got both your home automation and your key fob. So great for sort of things like carriage door openers or gate openers. So really that's quite cheap. So yeah, that's pretty good. So yeah, that's the main smart home thing. I mean, I've been playing around with some automations and stuff with SmartThings and this Edge driver stuff. And I have to say, although I dislike the fact they're shutting down all these consumer products, which are sort of the consumers have actually done themselves, it is going to make the actual speed and responsiveness of that system a lot better. So it's quite interesting in that respect. So that's good. But I'm far more interested in what Richard's been up to after last week's discussions.
Or what my electric vehicle adventures, or more Artemis updates. It's up to you. Which would you prefer?
Oh, both. I mean, I love both subjects. They were one of my favourite episodes.
well, the electric vehicle thing. This is it's a curious thing. As you know, I got a Volkswagen Tiguan about 2 years ago now, just under 2 years ago, and basically they're trying to take it back into stock, which means I said have some money and would you like another car? Okay, fine. And so I've been looking at EVs, Gary, because I did say that after this car, my next car would be an EV, an electric vehicle, and so I have begun looking. I've turned into Gary basically, and initially looking down the Volkswagen or Audi routes. I was looking at the ID3, ID4. ID4 was a bit too big. It's actually even bigger than a Tiguan, that's a big car, which may be fine for American roads, but UK roads, it's just a bit, and the UK car parks, it's not fun parking the thing, it's just too big. So I was quite keen on the ID3 size, but Mrs. Speed is less keen. She likes to have a big car. So, or rather a car, an SUV height car that she can get up into and look down on people. So ID3 doesn't look like it's going to be an option or any of that sort of scope. But I've actually, and Gary, you mentioned this, I think, I've been looking at the MGs, and they seem to be stonkingly good value.
They are stonkingly good value. I mean, I said we've got an MGZ SEV here, which is, I mean, almost as good in spec and things. I mean, the software is a bit clunky, but then VW software is a bit clunky as well. So
yeah, yes. I mean,
and the other thing about MGs, they're made by SAIC, who are the VW manufacturers for China, and they share a lot of parts. Yeah, if you start taking parts of them, they're stamped with VW marks.
But they just seem to be so much. I mean, it seems to be relatively good value. I mean, EVs tend to, I always had pegged as being expensive, but these appear to both be relatively good value. And I mean, the MG brand has been sadly somewhat devalued over the years since its demise and an acquisition. But these seem to be really good cars.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they're very drivable, very easy to drive cars. They're good quality. I've seen the ZS EV I drive quite regularly. Is a very good car. Super good accelerating. I guess the only problem with it is it accelerates a bit too fast.
Well, yes, that is one of the problems.
Traction.
I mean, I've had the ID3 out a few times now, and yeah, it's. I mean, obviously, there's now only one type you can get in the UK because I think because of supply chain constraints, they've stopped importing the longer battery ones and the lower powered ones. I think it's the 205 brake horsepower version is all you can get now with the 54 kilowatt hour battery. I think that does about. The manufacturer says 265 miles on a charge, but realistically speaking, you get 200 miles if you're careful with it. But goodness me, when you put your foot down, it goes. It really goes fast.
So the ZS is quite a light car, even though it's got quite a battery in the new long range version. I mean, it used to always was a good car, but they only had a very small battery, and now they've got a longer range battery, which does realistically, even in this weather, does over 200 miles.
Well, yes, I've seen that the long range, the 64 kilowatt hour ones. The book thing says 281 miles, but yeah, I mean, if you can get 200 miles out of it, then that's probably sufficient. So yeah, I mean, things like Kia and Skodas and things were also on my shopping list, but the MG has leapt to the top just based on the fact that it appears to be well of a correct size in terms of getting up into it, and also the price. I mean, I keep looking at the pricing, and that can't be right. I mean, it's undercutting the competition by about £10,000, which is a lot of money.
Yeah, and for what spec you get, it's really, really impressive.
Yeah, I think that. And you get a 7-year warranty as well, so it's pretty impressive stuff, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I'm going to say actually against MG at the moment is that their service structure is slightly overwhelmed at the moment because they've sold so many cars. They've almost done too well. But that's fine. I mean, they're sorting it out. They're catching up, and that will be sorted out. And to be honest, unless you get a Rogue one, they're very reliable.
So I'll let you know how it goes next week. I plan to do some more test driving over the next week or so.
Cool, very good stuff. Well, I like the MG. The new MGs, which are going to come out 2 years' time, are going to be phenomenal vehicles. So the MG4 is already a phenomenal vehicle. It's a really, really impressive vehicle, and way better spec than the i3. But obviously that went because that's not an SUV. But they're going to build all their new vehicles on the same chassis. They've come and that's going to have so many advantages because they basically they're using lightweight batteries, so they'll get a lot more range for the bang for the buck effectively. Because they can, obviously, the lighter your batteries, the more efficient your car is effectively. So it's
yes. I mean, I was aware the ID.3 was about 1.7 tons. It's like, okay, that's a heavy vehicle to be driving around. It did feel solid on the road.
The MGs can feel a bit twitchy compared to that because they are a bit lighter, but still good sense of. So I mean, the one thing about all EVs is all properly built EVs, which are built as flat bodies on top of flat chassis. It's the batteries are equally distributed, so you get that equal weight distribution, which is has been the aim of so many sort of supercars over the years to try and get that real mid-engine proper balance, 50-50 balance, and it just comes for free effectively with most EVs because you how your batteries keep the weight distribution.
I guess one of the interesting things is going to be is availability of stock, because I know a new ID3, for example, could take anywhere up to 9 months to arrive. So I've been to see how long it's going to take to get a new MG, or even what the second-hand stock is like, which I imagine is quite poor at the moment. So
there were some dealers models being bandied around a few weeks. So whether they're still around, I don't know. But I mean, I think last I heard it was around about 6 months on the MZZS, but that's always subject to change. And obviously, anything coming out of China at the moment may be delayed.
yes, there are there are some issues. Well, what's not having issues to launch the gears, just to finish up, is the Artemis mission, which is still going really well. As of today, I think the Orion spacecraft is now the farthest it can get from Earth, which is about 268,000 miles away from Earth, which is frankly astonishing. And because they've helpfully put some cameras with floodlights on the solar panels, they've taken some snapshots of the spacecraft, and you can see. I think NASA's done one. I don't know if it's floodlit from the sun. I'm afraid I can't tell you that. I don't know. It's the illumination is sufficient for you to see the Orion spacecraft. It's the European Solar Service module and the Moon and the Earth all in the same picture. It's actually quite a stunning picture when you think that is, of course, a crew-capable vehicle. You know, there could be a crew in that. It's performing like a champ. It's at the midway point. I think the whole mission is supposed to last about 25.5 days, so it's at the halfway point. It all seems to be going well. There's been a few glitches here and there, but nothing that's derailed it. And I think it's going so well they're going to add some more objectives to the mission to try and close out more things as they barrel around the moon back towards the Earth. So it's again another thing. I can't say anything bad because it's going really well. Obviously, no one's going to breathe until it actually splashes down in the ocean and they can recover the bits of equipment that they need for Artemis 2. But on the whole, a very successful test flight so far, and there's once more a crew capable vehicle going around the other side of the moon. So happy days. And don't say dark side of the moon. Whatever you do, far side of the moon.
There is no dark side of the moon. In matter of fact, it's all dark.
Hey, bit of Pink Floyd there. Well done, sir.
Yes, well, a very positive show from you this week, Richard.
I know. Well, hopefully
what the Americans have done to you.
Well, hopefully the Windows and ARM box will break. I mean, with the Artemis thing, the only negative thing I could come up with really was the fact that it did make a bit of a mess of its launch tower. But again, they've got over a year to fix that, so it's not really a major issue. It broke some blast doors, I think, and broke some equipment, but that can easily be. I mean, I don't see any issues there with that being repaired before Artemis 2, and it's all going really well. I'm sure.
That's my really famous last word. But we'll see next week.
Exactly. Well, no, I mean, I think next week it will still be going well. I suspect the week after that will be when it comes back to Earth, and then maybe something might. Well, it's going to land safely. It's going to splash down safely, and that's going to be the big deciding point there. But thus far, I mean, it's going great, and I think obviously as a European, I'm very pleased to see the European Solar Service module is performing so well as well. It's great to see, really. So there we go. Depressingly positive.
Fantastic. Well, I won't ask you what your Twitter address is because you're not on there now. So what was your Mastodon address?
Come back to me on that. I can't remember. I've forgotten it again.
Oh well, I did manage to get the link actually from what you were saying last week, so I've included a link for that in the show notes.
It's at Richard_Speed at TechHub.at Mastodon. It's something like that. Just put in the show notes for there. That's where I'm at now.
Essential, isn't it? No, that way. So
yes,
I've got one, but I'm not sure which server it's on.
Yeah, but as I say, I am now off Twitter, and I have to say, it's a good experience being off Twitter. You don't realise how corrosive that place can be sometimes.
Yeah, I'm still on there now, but we'll see. Definitely not on Facebook. But Gary, you are on Twitter at the moment? So where are you?
You're right. Well, I'm on Twitter and on Mastodon, so I'm at Gary WMA on Twitter and at Gary WMA at mas.to, mas.to. So,
did you? I mean, I'm not wishing to get at all political here, but did you see that? I think today. Apple announced that they were going to suspend some or a chunk of advertising on Twitter, which there was a bit of hysteria about that. To which I would say, big company decides the people it needs to sell to aren't there. That's it's a business call. Calm down, people. It's a business call. That's they are a business. They seek to sell stuff. If they're not going to, they're going to look to see where they can spend their money most efficiently, and that's all they're doing. So calm down.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, well, with that, we shall leave it for this week. So we'll be back same time in play next week, into December next week as well. I'm at iStickstar on Twitter, and we'll see you next week.
Okay.
Cheerio.